All right, so now we're going to talk about volatility. So simply put, volatility is the range of price change that a security experiences over a given period of time. If the price stays relatively stable, the security has low volatility. A high volatility security hits new highs and lows quickly, moving erratically, and has rapid increases and dramatic falls. So active crypto traders focus on volatility that occurs second to second or minute to minute, while swing traders focus on slightly longer time frames, usually days or weeks. So we kind of fall right in the center of that category, but essentially volatility is how much and quickly something moves up and down. So more volatile equals larger swings up and down, unpredictable. We can see in chart 1 we have a low down here, a high, a low, and it's a big wide range and it's moving a lot, kind of like in this range. Less volatility is less swings up and down, more predictable. So this is actually consolidating nicely into a nice tight trend, which is very predictable, meaning that there's less volatility. This also creates less trading opportunity. So as traders, we like volatility because big swings mean big corrections, and that kind of allows us to make trades. So we rely on volatility, but there's a certain amount of volatility that becomes too much and it becomes a detriment to trading. So next we're going to go over altcoins. An altcoin is an alternative digital currency to Bitcoin. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It actually refers to a group of cryptocurrencies, ultimately the cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin. So you can kind of compare them to penny stocks or small biotech stocks. So in the stock market, you have Apple, you have Starbucks, you have Google, Amazon, and then you have those little companies. Altcoins are just any coin other than Bitcoin. So it's kind of like penny stocks or smaller cryptocurrencies. Active addresses. This is something that we want to pay attention to when we're looking at mass adoption and growth potential on a cryptocurrency fundamentally. So the number of unique addresses that were active in the network, either as a sender or a receiver, only addresses that were active in a successful transaction are counted. So when we look at active addresses, we can actually see how many people are participating in the use of a cryptocurrency, which can indicate to us whether or not it's being adopted. So it's basically the number of addresses performing any sort of interaction in the blockchain. This goes hand in hand with volume. This goes hand in hand in mass adoption. So this shows us how many people are adopting cryptocurrency and how often they're using them. So we see right here on Glassnode, this is a representation of active addresses for Bitcoin. We can see volume by exchange right here. So these are showing us different exchanges of active addresses. So this kind of shows us like fundamental information on cryptocurrencies and how they're being adopted. A good resource is Glassnodes. I use them all the time to figure out about like smaller cryptocurrencies and see if they have some potential basically opportunity behind them. So that's kind of like a cool little thing you can look into. If you want to go to Glassnodes, you can look at tons of information about cryptocurrencies. So next we're going to talk about fees paid. So the blockchain fee is a cryptocurrency transaction fee that is charged to users when performing crypto transactions. The fee is collected in order to process a transaction on the network. So you need to pay the blockchain fee in order to ensure your cryptocurrency transfer arrives in a timely manner. So if a cryptocurrency operates on only one blockchain, the more transactions completed, the more expensive it gets to compute the transactions and store it. This is why Ethereum has shards, and other altcoins have methods of running parallel blockchains to speed up their transactions, making them cheaper and making the process faster and more scalable. So basically, the reason Bitcoin has a scalability issue is because it doesn't use this feature, and this is actually why I like Ethereum a lot. It's because they implemented something called shards, and they basically allow simultaneous blockchains to run parallel to one another. So it kind of speeds up the transactions and makes it way less expensive to complete transactions. First, we're going to talk about proof of work. So proof of work is a form of cryptographic zero-knowledge proof in which one party, the provider, proves to the others, the verifiers, that a certain amount of computational effort has been expended for some purpose. Verifiers can subsequently confirm the expenditure with minimal effort on their part. This is kind of showing that there is some sort of value to the cryptocurrency because they're actually expelling energy to complete the transactions. This is giving it some sort of worth. A lot of people say, oh, there's no worth. How could you invest in it? That's being tracked in the blockchain, showing how much computational energy is actually being required. So that's where the value comes in. This security ensures that the independent data processors, or miners, you probably heard of miners, can't lie about the transaction. So proof of work is issued to securely sequence Bitcoin's transactions or any cryptocurrency transaction history while increasing the difficulty of altering data over time. So next thing we're going to talk about is proof of stake. So basically proof of stake is that the individual that creates the next block on the blockchain is based on how much they personally have staked. So to make things simple, the stake is based on the number of coins the person has for the particular blockchain that they're attempting to mine. This significantly drops the cost of doing business for these cryptocurrencies, completing transactions. And that's like one of the biggest issues with cryptocurrencies is how expensive it is to complete transactions, which makes it the transaction prices kind of unpredictable and it makes it not efficient. And that's something that Cardano or ADA is doing. They're improving so much on this because they use proof of stake, which is very much significantly dropping the overhead for them, which is the reason why I have 10% of my portfolio in ADA. I have several YouTube videos about it, but basically proof of stake is kind of like almost in a way, it's a little bit riskier to pursue, but it's also a lot more cost effective. Next thing we're going to talk about is hash rate. This has a lot to do with mining, so I'm just going to kind of talk about this so you have a general concept on it. So the hash rate is the measurement of how many times the Bitcoin network is able to attempt to complete the calculations each second. So it's approximately the average of all the hash rates of each individual mining machine in the network, and it basically overall represents the computational power that Bitcoin miners need in order to confirm transactions on the blockchain. The increase in hash rate represents high security in the network, a trend that has been consolidated in recent years, ultimately increasing confidence for potential investors in Bitcoin. So this basically has to do with mining. It has to do with how efficient and powerful the miners' computers are, and that can translate into being able to efficiently do the computation required to participate in the blockchain. And that is how miners make money, and that's how the transactions are validated on the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency blockchain. Next thing we're going to talk about is halving. I don't know, you've probably heard about halving in the crypto. So halving occurs when block rewards, or the number of coins entering circulation whenever a block is produced. Approximately every 10 minutes, it is reduced by half. The supply in effect increases the coin scarcity, which has historically increased the price. So halving is basically when they cut the supply in half in order to basically protect against inflating the cryptocurrency. So halving is an event where the reward for mining new blocks is halved, meaning miners receive 50% fewer coins for verifying transactions. Coin halving are important events for traders because they reduce the number of new coins being generated in the network. So next we're going to talk about mining. So mining is the process of CPUs facilitating and completing transactions on the blockchain. These computers use electricity to complete the transaction, which results in transaction fees. The more transactions are completed and stored, the more difficult the transactions become, and it becomes slower and more expensive. Miners are responsible for completing the transactions, being that there is no centralized entity controlling and managing cryptocurrencies. So essentially, miners are the ones facilitating the transactions. So it's actually pretty cool because technically cryptocurrencies are employing anyone that is mining. So it's kind of like putting the power in the people and allowing them to participate and basically operate the cryptocurrency by expending independent amounts of electricity and kind of managing it on their own. So someone's going to do it because there's going to be an incentive to mine, and it kind of is a self-regulating process, which is pretty cool. But that's how cryptocurrencies actually have their computations done, is through individuals doing it, which are basically miners. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the white paper. So white paper is essentially the operator's manual, or how a cryptocurrency works. So if you want to know exactly how the cryptocurrency works, you have to read the white paper or understand the white paper. So Bitcoin white paper was the first document to outline the principles of secure, trustless, peer-to-peer electronic payment system that was fundamentally designed to be transparent, as well as putting financial control back in the hands of the users. So white paper is basically the Bible to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. It explains exactly how the open source code works and how their cryptocurrency is meant to be designed and to function. So the next thing I want to talk about is open source. So most cryptocurrencies are open source code, meaning that anyone and everyone can see the inner workings of the cryptocurrency and the blockchain. So there's full transparency amongst users, no need for audit, and it's completely decentralized. So no one owns it, but everyone can participate in it. Having open source code is basically like the whole purpose of cryptocurrencies, right? So if you have certain people operating it with proprietary information that they're not opening to the public, there's always room for government intervention and the need for them to run audits on people using and controlling the cryptocurrency. But in this case, if it's all open source, it's open to the public to be able to determine whether things are running fairly. And if anyone at any time wants to go in to see if that's the case, they have full access to do so. Things can't be changed, but everything can be seen from the outside in, meaning that there's actually no need whatsoever for audits, and making it very decentralized, fully transparent as well. So most businesses, currencies, and basically everything we are used to is owned by someone and controlled by a centralized entity. Crypto basically eliminates this, and that is why blockchain technology is so amazing, and in my opinion, why I think cryptocurrency is the future. So the next thing we're going to talk about is circulating supply, and we mentioned that kind of when we're talking about market capitalization, but basically the circulating supply refers to the coins that are accessible to the public and should not be confused with the total supply or max supply. The total supply is used to quantify the number of coins in existence, i.e. the number of coins that were already issued minus the coins that were burned. This is similar to the difference between float and shares outstanding. So in stocks, we have float, and floats are the total amount of shares open to the public to invest and trade. And then you have the total shares, which includes the float and then privately owned shares, or shares that aren't basically tradable but are still existent in calculating the market capitalization. So the shares outstanding aren't all open to the public, but they do count to calculate and establish market cap. Same thing with circulating supply. Circulating supply is the amount of supply that is open to the public, whereas there are coins that are burned or basically are not accessible to the public that still count towards market capitalization but aren't in the circulating supply. NVT ratio is basically the equivalent to price to earnings ratio in stocks. So the NVT indicator can be defined as Bitcoin's price to earnings ratio. So Bitcoin's NVT is calculated by dividing the network value MCAP by the daily USD volume transmitted through the blockchain. So this tells us how much investors are willing to spend compared to the company's earnings. So if a cryptocurrency has an NVT of 15, that means that for every $1 the company makes in earnings, an investor is willing to spend $15 respectively to own that company. So you can look at it as how many, basically exactly what we just said. If a cryptocurrency makes $1 in earnings, but if people are willing to spend $15 for every $1 in earnings, that means that people care more about owning the security for growth potential rather than they care about getting dividends payments through earnings. That usually shows a pretty strong conviction to the upside for investments, but not always. But this is what NVT basically stands for in the crypto world. The next thing we're going to talk about is transaction cost. So the average transaction fee measures the average fee in US dollars when a transaction is processed by a miner and confirmed. So the transaction fee can spike during periods of congestion in the network. So if a lot of people are trying to use it at once, as it did during the 27 crypto boom, where it reached nearly $60 USD for a single transaction. Network congestion on the blockchain competitively raises fees. This is the main reason for higher mining fees is supply and demand issues. So the block size is 1 megabyte, which means that miners can only confirm 1 megabyte worth of transactions for each block, one every 10 minutes. As a result, miners' fees skyrocketed. So that's important when we're talking about different types of cryptocurrencies, and that's one main reason why Bitcoin Bitcoin is not going to be used as a currency because it's simply not scalable enough. It's going to be a good store of value, but it's not going to be scalable for a currency because of that exact issue that we're talking about. So something that's important to know is what money actually stands for in order to understand why cryptocurrency is so significant. So money is a store of value that has a medium of exchange and has a unit of account. So basically this is governed by a government, and they tell you what the money is meant to be worth, and that's a representation held by a centralized entity. Next thing that we're going to talk about is the Lightning Network. So the Lightning Network is a layer 2 payment protocol that operates on top of the blockchain-based cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. And this is intended to enable faster transactions among participating nodes and has been proposed as a solution to the Bitcoin scalability problem. So basically the reason this is important is because Bitcoin is now implementing the Lightning Network in order to try to improve the scalability issue that it's facing. And this most likely will catalyze a big increase in price, which is why we've seen Bitcoin increasing very rapidly. This is a layer 2 solution, meaning that they're not taking the original code and making adjustments to it. Rather, they're adding something over top of the original code in order to make modifications to improve